Tennessee last night, would they have won? And I'm going to post this on Twitter. Would they have won, lost by less than 10, lost by less than 20 to Georgia, or have just gotten blown out? What would have happened last night if Georgia was in TCU's place? What say you?
You mean if Tennessee was in TCU's place?
Yes, what did I say?
You said it, Georgia. It's okay.
Okay, Tennessee was in TCU's place. Apologize.
I'm going to say lost by less than 20. I'm going to say it would have looked exactly like that Tennessee-Georgia matchup in November. And the reason I'm going to say, if it were a semifinal game, I think Tennessee would have lost by less than 10, maybe even one of those two. But
what's the difference? What's the difference?
I think Georgia was looking ahead of the semifinal game and wasn't preparing well for it. And like I said, you can catch Georgia napping in those moments. Yesterday, they were fully focused, had the whole game circled, had nothing to focus on but the chance to win the title and go 15-0. There was nothing to distract them yesterday, which was very similar to how they played Tennessee in early November. When, remember, that was one of those games that there was nothing really to distract them because there was all this talk ahead of time that Tennessee might upset Georgia. It was a 1-2 game. Eric Ainge and a bunch of Tennessee fans talked about how quiet Sanford State. They were on a mission to blow out Tennessee in that game, and they won 27-13. I think it would have looked like that in the national title game last night. But again, that's the tough thing about a playoff. You got to keep the same level of motivation for week to week. Tennessee was effectively in a playoff scenario back in 2001, win the SEC title, and you go play for the national title. They couldn't focus right for the SEC title, and they lost that game. Worst loss in Tennessee football history. And so that happens a lot. And I think Georgia was in that mental state when they were playing the semifinal game.
Okay. I think Tennessee would have hung a lot closer. I go back to the beginning of that Georgia game, how everything went absolutely wrong. And I think that Tennessee would have been in it. I think Tennessee would have been eventually beaten, but I think they would have been in it. I think they would have had better pass protection. I think they would have had slightly better pressure. I just thought up front, Tennessee is significantly better on both sides of the ball. And then I think Tennessee. I want to backtrack a little bit. I'm assuming that Hendon Hooker is the guy, and that this is the Tennessee team that we saw play Georgia. So maybe that's a huge caveat in your mind. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're just fine with Joe Milton. So if I threw off your line of thinking, I apologize, Caleb. But I just think the fronts would have been way different, and I think that Tennessee would have been able to muster up enough of a game that this is within 10. I don't think it would have been out of hand. I don't think it would have been 30 points. I really don't even think it would have been 10 points.
The question is how locked in would Georgia have been? I think they would have been fully locked in for the national title, but Tennessee was one of the few games on the year where Georgia was fully locked in during the season, and they beat Tennessee by 14. And now, again, the reason I think it would have been with 10-20 is because, let's be honest, watching that Tennessee-Georgia game back in November, Georgia could have won by 30. They chose to win by 14 and run the clock out. So if Tennessee were to ever make it a game, Georgia would then keep the dogs on and they would win by 10-20. I think they wouldn't win by, it wouldn't be 65-7. I don't think they'd win by more than 20 either. I don't think Tennessee is capable of hanging with a fully healthy, fully locked in Georgia team. I just don't, but yeah, they wouldn't lose 65-7.
I think the key word you brought out there is fully locked in. So let's say Tennessee's in Ohio State's place the week before, and you brought this up, and Georgia admittedly overlooked that game, which is crazy to me in an elimination game. But several of the players said that last night after the big win over TCU. So when you look at Tennessee, maybe they would have overlooked Tennessee had there somehow been a semifinal matchup. Now, the College Football Playoff Committee is never going to let that happen. They would want to separate two conference teams. But let's just say that was the case. Then, yes, I think Georgia saying, hey, we already beat these guys, feeling good about ourselves. I certainly think that Georgia could have overlooked Tennessee, as bizarre as that might seem.